And let's watch some Taliesin and Evitel while servers go down and reset.
Oh wow, I am so excited for a new Dawn of World of Warcraft cross-faction play.
Get your
Me
whoosh
too.
back, yeah.
Tally, you might want to check your title.
Oh, right, good one, yeah. We want to make our new Horde allies feel welcome and at home.
Here they
Tally
come
the whole
now.
thing.
Well, I don't know, Evie. They seem a bit rough-looking. Are you sure this is going to work out?
Only one way to find out. To a dungeon. Hero! Hero, please! Hero!
Lost! Ah!
You watch your mouth around my wife, dude. These Horde guys are very horny, Evertel, which is great, obviously, but also, like, very inappropriate. I don't know if this is going to work out.
If only there was something we could all really bond over. Like something
Get a bio,
we
get a
could
drink,
all
get a
share.
snack, yeah.
Man, this healer really sucks, right?
Oh boy, yeah, tell me about it.
Totally, the absolute worst.
Hang on, I'm the healer.
Oh yeah, he sucks.
You did it, Tally. You brought Horde and Alliance together in friendship and understanding at last.
Could we kick him?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
These intros are so good.
Power.
Hello, Internet, and welcome to a very special episode of the Weekly Reset. Taliesin and Evertel's Wondrous Wisdom Show, because it is the episode for the week that World of Warcraft changes forever with the introduction of
It did change
cross-faction
forever,
play.
honestly.
Horde and Alliance playing together, mass hysteria. Hello, everyone, it's Taliesin from the
The mass hysteria is that the fucking servers broke.
future here, or I guess the present. Slightly older and more tired Taliesin anyway. Much more tired. Now, we specifically held off releasing this episode of the reset until the actual in-game reset because we just had a sneaky suspicion that there was going to be some secret unannounced stuff in there.
There certainly
as you'll know
was.
if you've been following this show. And we are very glad that we did because the mad lads only went and did it, fam! As well as everything we were expecting, 9.25.
Besides cross-faction rating, the best part about this patch is the fact that all this stuff came into the game and nobody knew it was
It
coming.
also has a ton
love
of
that.
very important surprises in it, including 3
In-game
new
surprises.
story chapters and in-game cutscenes and new Dark Ranger customizations for Blood, Void, and Night Elves upon completing the new
Yes, sir.
Return to Lordaeron questline. And the fact that Blizz kept this under wraps right up until the launch is genuinely brilliant, and I just want you to rest assured that we will be talking about all of that, or rather, future present tired Taliesin will be talking about it. Don't worry, this is the good shit. Oh, and also, not that it's important at all, but you know, Taliesin was right. That's not important, but it is true. Okay, see you in a bit. Enjoy Innocent Unknowing past me for a minute. And cross-faction play is a part, of course, of the new patch 9.2.
Is your audio sync off? Is mine? Mine looks fine. How's yours? I don't know.
2.5, which is out now as you watch this. The patch that managed to be simultaneously a little bit overdue and also surprisingly soon, with its release announced just days before it hit the live servers. With this accompanying art, which I guess is referencing cross-faction stuff. It's
Yeah,
like a
that's it.
orc and a human, and they're like next to each other and not all angry with each other. But it's also definitely the first time that Blizz have used a trinket as the main focus of their new patch art, which is lovely. And obviously, we are going to be taking you through
Talking about
quickly and
Andrew.
efficiently everything that is and isn't in this patch, and do
Oh,
our
he's
usual
talking to Old Warrior's Soul. That's what he... Okay.
thing of, you know, if you're someone that has kind of fallen off the WoW train a little, and let's face it, falling off probably wouldn't have hurt much since it's been a very slow-moving train of late, and let's be real, why shouldn't you come back for 9.25? Well, I'm glad you are. Don't come back for
hysteria.
9.2.5. If you are expecting Season 4, this is not the much-hyped and
Season
vaunted
4 will
new
probably be in
tier of
August.
gear with vendors for deterministic gearing, nor the bright new world of each raid of Shadowlands being current again in the rotation, nor the whole new roster of classic, as in, you know, that's a classic, rather than World of Warcraft or Burning Crusade or Wrath classic. Although, with the way things have been going with those, it genuinely wouldn't surprise me too much if they added Mythic Plus to a Season of
The
Mastery
White
or
Fest we
something,
just did
and
right
that would
there,
be a
okay.
good thing. maybe. There's no new PvP season. All of that is to come further down the line, almost certainly at some point in August, we think. Don't come back to
I'd bet August.
9.25 if you want cross-realm guilds. Mr. GM, who has done loads of good work on testing this stuff, managed to start one on the PTR, but we think that has now been fixed for some reason, because having guilds would be awesome, obviously, but it's not on Blizzard's grand plan at the moment, and we just have to live with that. It's not a thing. Don't come back to 9.25 if you're very offended at the thought of signing a social contract on logging in for the first time, reminding you of
I just don't know why people are getting so offended by this. I didn't even read it. And I'm an attorney and I didn't read it, I just
shit
accepted.
that's in the terms of service, like no harassment, no hate speech, no spamming or advertising, and being
like to get upset these
encouraged
days.
to, just generally be nice and supportive to other players without being a dick, because such a social contract exists,
Oh, you were downloading a
and you
driver, okay.
will need to sign it before being allowed to play. Obviously, when I bring up people complaining about this, it's complete hypothetical though, because no one is actually going to object to that. And so ends World of Warcraft. No, it was a shit show, obviously. Good fishing god, I'm glad I haven't tossed any cash down this particular furnace in the last couple of years. Yet another nail in the coffin. Jaffa never
Christ.
encountered as many sensitive snowflakes as I have in WoW. Soft-ass snowflake culture. Woke craft. Yeah, some people are upset about it. And look, I don't want to misrepresent anyone here. And in fairness, players who oppose this, or rather, don't outright praise it, do tend to fall into three distinct groups. The people who
still gonna be
you just
toxic and
know
Mythic
you
Plus
wouldn't ever
at
want
the
to play
healer
the
for
game
not
with in
healing.
the first place. We've seen
Look, I mean, this isn't going to stop people from being toxic. It's just a back end way for Blizzard
some
to
of
cover
them
their own
here,
asses.
but also people who are afraid that this new contract, combined with the new, more thorough reporting
Take a look at this
tools
after
coming
the
in
video will help
9.25,
with the fight,
will
okay.
result in, at best, no change at all, and at worst, fake mass reporting by trolls to get perfectly innocent players banned.
Possible.
Something that obviously can happen right now. And whereas I don't think a new hypothetical invasion of Jesse Smollett's wrongly reporting good, honest, salt-of-the-earth players for racism or general meanness, where actually they did nothing wrong, is an especially good reason not to encourage better behavior or make it easier to report bad behavior. It is true that at the end of the day, Blizz can have all the systems in place that they like. They can have as many standards of behavior as they like. If they don't hire more staff to deal with issues when they arise, rather than rely on an
Isn't
automated
that big
system,
of an issue?
it is true not much is going to change. And the thing is, they're not going to hire more GMs for this, are they? I know that. You know that. We'll have to wait and see how the new report tools pan out, but my hopes aren't high anything's really going to change. But that's certainly not a negative about the contract itself. Likewise, the third concern, which is that toxic
Rapey
game
and
inspires
stuff.
toxic behavior. Who could imagine? They are shifting blame from their toxic workplace to the player base. They get to
There it
blame
is.
us, virtue signal, and divide us all at the same time. The idea that this is just a distraction for the fact that Blizzard have cultivated toxicity in their player base from the very start. And honestly, there may be some truth in that. Whereas I think most of the Horde and Alliance animosity that comes along with WoW stuff is basically just playful to the point of being tongue-in-cheek most of the time, there is no doubt a significant portion
know,
of the
you
player
know.
base
Everybody
do take
knows
it
it.
far too seriously, and Blizzard probably hasn't done enough to contain that traditionally. The most obvious example would be Blizz cheerfully screening that Cannibal Corpse guy at BlizzCon, throwing out homophobic slurs at Alliance players and really meaning it. That tongue is not in his cheek. That guy's cheek was tongue-free, and you'd be surprised at how many people at the time said that wasn't offensive, or that people should toughen up and
You
get
did
thicker
call it.
skins if they want to play online. The dismissal of indefensible behavior that I'm sure no one would ever resort to today. So I think there is a kernel of truth in this criticism, and yet I always feel that kind of does a disservice to the vast majority of players who aren't complete dickheads, you know? Despite any encouragement of friction between the factions and players, I and all my friends and guildies generally manage not to be toxic to people in-game. Nearly all of the time. I hardly ever throw out the N-word or homophobic slurs these days, you know? I manage not to do a hate speech or harassment or anything else, so if Blizzard really are fostering those things among
Wait, I had 55 deaths yesterday, my Mythic Plus. We had 55 deaths as a group. I didn't cuss a single person out.
Its players, they're really not
Patience.
fostering hard enough to encourage anyone who isn't already
Yeah.
toxic to be complete douches and act in those ways. And
Hardly,
to get back to the
yeah.
topic, it's hard to see how this social contract could possibly make that behavior worse. There's basically zero downsides to this as far as I'm concerned. But
You
yeah,
shouldn't be
don't
saying
come
that
back
at
for
all.
925 if you disagree with that. Seriously. Please don't come
think he's
back.
being sarcastic.
And why should you come back? Well, if any of the things that will be a part of 925 appeal to you, of course. Oh, it's time for
I think 9.25 is
925
a great time to
super
come back.
quick roundup. Yes,
Plenty
I,
of
future
catch-up
President
mechanics.
Taliesin, am back. Yes, the main headline of the patch was going to be cross-faction
glad you did a bit of
play,
plus, yeah.
and old me, younger me, is still going to cover all of that.
It's an
But
accomplishment.
that headline has changed when the patch launched, and the possibility that we had considered and speculated upon, but dared not truly hope for, came to pass. And yes, there was a reason Blizz were keeping the 9.25 splash screen encrypted on the PTR, and yes, that reason was not only 3 new in-game cutscenes, not only a new questline dealing with the Forsaken and their move back into Lordaeron, but yes, the unlocking
Cool
of
questline.
new Dark Ranger customizations for Blood Elf.
I love that this didn't get data mined. I was so happy because I want to see things for the first time in game, and I want to experience things in the game. I don't want to experience things through Wowhead. As much as I love Wowhead, I do think they've kind of spoiled some of the fun that is seeing stuff in game. And that's why I'm happy that none of this got revealed.
Elves, Void Elves, and Night Elves as
Should be an
well.
achievement
This
Dead Man
pallid
Walking.
skin and red eye option is such a 9-carat grade A gold-plated crowd-pleasing win that it's actually incredibly impressive that Blizz kept it under wraps and secret until the patch was
yeah.
live. This is a major
Did I
feature
do
of
the-
the patch.
I did the quest, yeah, I did
Arguably
the-
a
I
bigger
did the
selling
quest
point
line.
to many people than the cross-faction stuff, and Blizz just didn't
Should have
mention
five-heeled
it.
the
And that
Mythic
element of
Plus.
surprise is so unusual for this game and the way that it is usually put together that it genuinely seems like another major landmark.
I won a
and
Battleground last
new
night. It counted as a
dawn
loss.
in of itself, because
Yeah, Jivo, they are, by the way, getting rid of cross-faction PvP until they can get it fixed. That's part of why this reset's going on.
if not spoiling its big story moments on the PTR were to become the new norm, then the way loads of
immediately
us
paid $35
experience
for a
and
race
consume
change.
this game will change dramatically. And
It
for
is
the
30%
better.
off right now.
Like, normally, Return to Lordaeron and Dark Ranger customizations would have been on the PTR months ago. They would have been talked about on
US.
Wowhead and forums and this show. You'd have heard all the main plot beats secondhand, or watched a video of the questline with no voice dialogue, or maybe you'd have just watched a rougher, unvoiced
Zetus,
version
thank
of
you
the
for the follow and welcome
cutscene
to
with
our
a big
Scourge.
red X through it. Instead, the first you've heard about this new storyline and
Yes, experiencing these cutscenes without a big red X through it and actually experiencing it in-game for the first... That's why I didn't watch these on stream yesterday. I wanted people to experience it in-game the way I did, and it was great. I loved it.
Dark Ranger stuff was on the day that it launched, which means
Cross-faction PvP is just broken. It was breaking shit, so they just had to remove it from the game for now, and they'll add it back, they said, when it's ready.
you didn't have to read about it. You didn't have to engage in weeks-long Twitter conversations about it before you saw it with your own eyes. You could just log on and play
You
it
lose when
straight
you win.
away.
Yeah,
it
it's
means
just it's
everyone's
bugged.
first
It's very
experience
bugged.
of the quests is just that much more positive and engaged. And yes, it helps that the quest line itself is an absolute banger too, for sure. But more than that, it's just the correct way
Tally was
to be
playing it yesterday, like,
experiencing it. And
he got
I
early
really
access
hope it's a
for
philosophy
Diablo
that
Immortal.
Blizz carries through in the future. I feel like there was genuinely more hype this way than having it
was.
on the PTR, personally. The
There
Lordaeron
was more
questline has you, whether as a Horde or disguised Alliance character, helping Kalia Menethil in gathering various important Forsaken folks and helping them cleanse the blight from overground Lordaeron, giving the Forsaken, including, it would seem, many of the raised Night Elf Rangers from Darkshore, a foothold in a new home and rewarding players with those Dark Ranger.
Here's the thing, we cleansed Lordaeron, but yesterday I tried to go back to the Undercity. It's still closed off. And Lordaeron is not marked as a city yet on the map. I'm wondering if Lordaeron is eventually going to become a capital city again. And maybe it'll be Upper Lordaeron instead of Undercity. Because I think Lordaeron is a cool in-game asset, and I'd like it to be a city. I think that'd be cool. We'll see whether they turn it into, and it should be bi-factional, of course. I think it should be both factions can go to that city. It'd be cool if they redid Lordaeron.
customizations, a new skin tone and red eye combo, which is available to all Blood Elves, Void Elves, and Night Elves, regardless of class, just like Night Warrior customizations in BFA. And if you complete the quest on a Hunter, then you'll get the BFA Dark Ranger Transmog set, wearable exclusively by Hunters of any race. And the quest itself is full of good character moments and dialogue,
Yeah, you can
and
only
it's
get to
fun
it by
see
glitching.
most of the Forsaken leaders be as flat out distrustful of Kalia as most of the Horde
Yeah, they were
player
basically
base
bitching
seem to
Kalia out
be.
that whole
She takes a
quest
role
line.
as part of the new Desolate Council at the end of the story, and that will be a huge relief for players who were worried she was being primed to end up as High Lightforged Queen of the Forsaken, even though literally any time we've ever talked to her in the past 6 years, she's made a point of saying she has no interest in being a leader. There's a really cool cutscene in this quest too, between Kalia and Liam Voss in the throne room of Lordaeron, which obviously has very special significance to Kalia. Also really interesting in this, one of the ambient
That was
sound
cool.
effects associated with the throne room, the ghosts of Lordaeron, the chatter and the screams, the echoes of its violent past in Warcraft 3 have disappeared. Almost like the ghosts have been put to
Yeah, if you used to stand in that throne room back in the day when it was the Undercity, you could, if you stood long enough, you could hear the voices from the cinematic happening, like the whole screaming and the deaths and everything. It was creepy as hell. But I guess it's gone now. I didn't even realize that.
rest. The models and the animations in it are absolutely incredible, and best of all, it's only one of 3 cutscenes in this
Ghost
patch.
Badger,
The
thank you
others
for the
are a
follow
scene
and welcome
showing
to
a
our
conversation
Scourge.
between Anduin and Sylvanas in the Moor, and there's also Tyrande being given the new Tear of Elune, infused, willingly, it's important to say, by the souls of rescued Teldrassil Night Elves, which itself is clearly being primed as becoming a new home for the Night Elves a bit further
Gotta
down
be
the
the new
road.
tree.
My money from the conversation that goes on in this scene would be that it's going to be planted in the Dragon Isles at some point and turned into, I don't know, a new world tree or elf tree or whatever it is.
Interesting. Could you imagine if Darnassus was now in the Dragon Isles? I wonder. I don't think it's going to be planted in the Dragon Isles. If I had to guess, I don't know. He could be right, but I still think it's going to be planted right back where it was, just new world tree. I mean, where's the most fertile soil, right? After a tree burns down, that soil's pretty fertile.
Grows from a
Might
Tear
want
of
to plant
Elune.
it
The
there.
Night Elves giving their souls to aid in the rebirth of Night Elf society.
I still have
is
Tear
a
of
nice
Elune in my bank
contrast
from
to the
Legion.
event that this will doubtless remind you of, the Wisps sacrificing themselves to kill Archimonde in Warcraft 3. This scenario, by contrast,
yeah, I
is a much
remember
more
that.
hopeful one and reinforces the themes of Tyranda's Shadowlands arc of choosing
Keep it
renewal
safe, Dragon
over
Isles, tell them to
destruction.
plant it,
We
maybe.
clearly hear a heartbeat when she
Plant
rests
it
her
where
head on the
Theramore
sea
was.
too, which suggests that those souls aren't
Maybe.
sacrificed exactly, and I wouldn't be surprised to
That
see their
land's
souls
still covered in
eventually
arcane magic.
inhabiting the new Night Elves' home when it is established. It's a really good cutscene. There's a hint towards Ysera returning to Azeroth at some point.
Night Elf Ash is a great place to plant tomatoes.
I like it, but I don't like it as much as I like Anduin's visit to Sylvanas in the Moor, where we see her literally looting a soul by hand. Yeah, this whole freeing all the souls thing is going to take a while. Before we get what is a really satisfying payoff to the real main story of Shadowlands, the relationship between these two mortal enemies. Anduin is clearly
tense
still
sexual
incredibly
relationship between
affected
Anduin
by
and
his
Sylvanas.
experience in being dominated by the jailer. Not just the loss of control and the bad things that he did, but the fear that he might have
He
actually
enjoyed it.
enjoyed doing those
Yeah.
things on some
Oh, yeah.
level. And honestly, it's really good to see the Golden Boy having a residual trauma that is clearly going to take some time to truly deal with, rather than, the return to business as normal that I think most of us would have expected. Seeing Anduin's anxiety shift from a worry that he won't be able to live up to his father's legacy into much darker doubts that he is even a good person has lots of potential to be really interesting, I think. In all 3 cases,
The power of a Death
animation
Knight is
and
hard
the
to let
detail
go
of
of.
the models in these cutscenes is, for WoW, genuinely pretty staggering. I mean, have you seen these eyelashes? Seriously, just look at these eyelashes. And if this is a new dawn in terms of cutscenes and story delivery, then yes, I am totally
I enjoyed him
here
doing
for
those
it.
things as
There's
well.
even a cool little Easter egg with Venari in the Creation Catalyst, which has an extra option if you're an engineer, like, you're actually playing a roleplay game or something, which sets her up for some very, very interesting story later on as well. If you're confused, I'd
Indeed.
suggest going back and rereading Firim's journal. So all these little story chapters and the new customizations are really enjoyable and worthwhile anyway on their own terms, in my opinion. But the fact that they were kept secret, the fact fact that players were able
Exactly,
to enjoy
the secret
fresh
feeds will make them
without being
great.
spoiled months in advance is a delight,
I love
and a
bad
dub
hats.
so big that I'm going to have to put it in the archives, because seriously, I've got to take my hat off to Blizz on this one. Credit where it's due. Well played. Keep it up. And when you think about it, the last 3 patches of this game now, from 9.15 onwards, have been legitimate breaths of fresh air in
They've been
terms of
good.
game design philosophy
They've been good.
and story delivery, and it bodes very well for the future in my opinion. And look, are you impressed? I got to the end of this segment and I haven't even gloated once about how right I was that Dark Rangers were becoming a thing, and the fact that Blizz were hiding something big on the PTR.
kind of did already,
Okay,
though.
maybe just a little gloat. Tally was right. Tally was right.
It's a good beat.
And we haven't even got onto the stuff that we knew was coming yet. I think back to younger old me for that. 925 super quick roundup. Blood Elf and Dark Iron Dwarf Heritage Armor quest lines. Yes.
We are going to do this. We already talked about it. We are going to do the Blood Elf Heritage Armor. We're going to do this quest line on stream. So that way people who don't have Blood Elves can actually see what it looks like. My most enjoyable raid kill was Anduin on this channel, even though I missed the final kill. Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome.
Brand new armor, and at the time of writing, we are like 99% sure
We killed a jailer and
mounts
his off,
will
so
be
he could bring
available
the
to
void
Blood Elf and
without
Dark
anyone
Iron
stopping him.
Dwarves who have already completed their race's existing
We'll see,
Heritage
Dick.
Armor quest lines, which for Dark Iron means you've leveled a character to max level from scratch, by the way. And in each case will reward an armor recolor, which is especially cool for the Blood Knight wannabes. No spoilers for the quests themselves, but they are pretty interesting from a lore perspective, especially on the Blood Elf side, which teams you up with a cool, new but not new character and gives some insight into
we're gonna do
Scourge
this together.
situation
We're gonna
since the
discuss
Helm of
this more.
Domination was broken
Tomorrow.
at the beginning of Shadowlands. All wings of Torghast will now be permanently open rather than being on a
Yay.
rotation,
I'm
and
not gonna do it.
completing a Torghast wing now guarantees a renown reward, as does completing dungeons and raid bosses. There is a whole new level 60 renown skip, which is purchasable so alts can start straight at that level, and all Covenant Sanctum achievements
I'm already
are now
exalted.
account-wide. There's a huge 400% increase to legendary crafting XP, which should mean more players are able to craft legendaries. I kind of think if you had interest in being a legendary crafter and not just spunking gold and or real life money on WoW tokens to buy the base items on the auction house, you'd have probably done it by now. But yeah,
Probably.
clearly a good change. There's a new PvP arena, which used to have a bunch of columns that could go up and down and activated by players interacting with a console in the center, but which now just doesn't. It's just
no
a new
problem,
arena
Sugar.
now. There is even a new high-resolution cursor. An armored hand that points at stuff is now crisp AF and sharper than Evertel after I've
Really?
said something stupid, which makes it look really great, obviously,
I
especially
didn't
when
pay attention
compared
to that. Is that
every
true?
other cursor icon in the game, like when you go hover over a mailbox, or a shopkeeper, or an innkeeper, or repairs, which still use scummy low-res images, which are now extra noticeable. Like when you're bored at home and you decide on a whim to watch Land Before Time now, and you're like,
Now
how
I
did
understand broken
anyone
equals technical
ever think
bug,
this
yeah.
picture quality was okay for like an actual real-life movie? Obviously, it's only a matter of time before all those other icons are upscaled too. One might even say that the hand is just a precursor of what is to come. I'm gonna leave a little gap here to talk
I see what he
about
did.
anything we didn't know or weren't sure about right here. Specifically, any surprises regarding quests and the story. Ooh, this is exciting. What's it gonna be? Oh no, we've already done my bit, carry on. And then of course there is what was going to be the whole headline of the entire patch, cross-faction play.
Yeah.
Something that really is
It changed,
a
man. It changed
seminal,
the game.
groundbreaking moment in the game. And a change which means, I honestly don't think it's exaggerating to say, nothing will ever be the same again. Because
I agree.
starting in 925, players will be able to team up with characters from the opposing faction for pre-made raid, dungeon, and at the moment on the PTR, Torghast and world quests. We'll have to wait and see if those make it live, because this was originally billed by Blizz as basically an instance thing. Players will be able to invite each other into groups cross-faction directly if they are in-game or Battle.net friends. Cross-faction communities can be created in-game, and existing communities can now become cross-faction with just the click of a toggle. Pug groups on the group finder can be opened to cross-faction by their leader, but automatic
I need
queues
high-res
like
Xmogs
LFR
from BC
Island
and Legion. Man,
Expeditions
they would
will
never do
not
that.
be
They'd have to redo all that
cross-faction.
gear.
This is very much an opt-in feature. Also, some instances that are built differently for Horde and Alliance, like Battle of Dazara Law, aren't able to accommodate cross-faction groups, and obviously guilds aren't a thing yet for some unknown reason. Otherwise, this represents a huge fundamental shift in how most people will play the game.
Moderation, that is so true. You mean now that all the Alliance that transferred to Horde 5 years ago can now play with Horde players? Yeah. That's basically what happened. I mean, that's what I did. That's what a lot of people did. They are offering 30% transfers, though. If you want to transfer back to the Alliance, 30% off.
Game, not just
until June
practically,
7th.
but philosophically and themically, which is almost as important, because this is a game and a
almost shit myself when I
franchise
saw a Nomen
built
raid.
around the concept of a faction conflict. From the very start, it has been two sides vying for supremacy over the other, players fighting each other in the open world, faction pride and shifting power dynamics. The factions have more often than not ended up working together in some capacity to combat the greater threat, but that animosity and unease between the two was always there, cemented by an inability to play or even largely communicate with members of the other team. By modern standards, it's a bold, almost reckless move to cut half of your player base off from the other completely, and one which worked just fine
It
back
worked
when
when
there
we
were
had like
10
12
million
million
people playing
people.
the game,
Yeah.
but which has become more and more frustrating and old-fashioned feeling, especially when Battle for Azeroth's story seemed to be explicitly setting up an end to the faction conflict as a part of its narrative.
Are you
It's
Silver
frankly
Dragon, are you
absolutely
coding
baffling that
in the
this
chat
change
right now?
wasn't
What the
introduced
hell
as
is
a
this?
climax of that narrative, with Jaina and Thrall and Anduin and Sourfang and Bane. Yes, Bane actually genuinely doing stuff like getting captured, okay. And the rest of the Planeteers
bigger
literally
cursor.
organizing a Horde and Alliance resistance force and constantly talking about breaking the cycle of hatred. Should have happened in BFA. There's also the glaring faction imbalance, which was never really such a big deal up until Warlords of Draenor, when Alliance were generally considered the best choice for PvP because of every man for himself essentially being an extra CC break trinket, and
Yep.
Horde being the best for raid because of some very beneficial racials of their own. But when everyone's favourite time-travelling expansion neutralised that human racial in PvP, there was basically no good gameplay reason why any serious player shouldn't pick Horde. And we're now at the stage where it is generally accepted, if you want to engage in WoW's multiplayer endgame at all,
Why would anyone want
you're
to
just
transfer back
making
to
it
Alliance? Don't ask me that, Day. Because I want to transfer back. Don't tell anyone.
needlessly difficult on yourself if you don't pick the faction where all the endgame instance players are. And thus it snowballs, so that relatively the Alliance is now emptier than Kevin Spacey's work calendar. Like in 9.25,
he did shit on the
cross-realm
Alliance
mythic
just now.
raiding is opening up for Sepulchre of the First Ones, even
Servers
though
are
the
back up?
Alliance
Okay.
is nowhere
reforming, right?
near filling their 100 Hall of Fame places, which is supposed to be a requirement. It's just not happening. So from a gameplay point of view,
I'm logging
this
back in.
change is much needed, and the difference in the way people engage with the game will be instant. For one, obviously, it gives a whole new freedom to loads of players who play Horde now because it's the only way to game with their friends or get regular groups, who will finally be able to play the faction and race of their
There you
actual
go.
choice. And,
Yeah.
you know,
My favorite faction and race to play in game is Alliance Human. As boring as that sounds, that's what I prefer. Just saying, I've always done it. I miss it, but I came Horde to play to be able to raid.
choice is a cool thing. For me, it actually works the other way round. My guild is Alliance, and I know loads of our members will relish being able to bring Horde characters along to raid and
Alright,
dungeons.
reposting a
Half
few.
my max level characters are Horde, and I can't wait to actually play my awesome Nightborn Mage, or Blood Elf Demon Hunter, or Forsaken Warlock, or Forsaken Rogue, or Forsaken Hunter. Look, I really like Forsaken, okay? With my friends rather than randoms, and as a streamer, it is absolutely amazing.
Oh,
because it
yeah, as a
more than
streamer, it's
doubles the amount of
100%
viewers
better.
who are able to join me for groups, and means me getting carried to Keystone Master every season is going to be that little bit
Nah,
easier.
not so much
and
for me.
also, and this is probably the most important bit, it just feels good. Look, I proudly rock my Horde Slayer title on my Alliance main and my Alliance Slayer title on my Horde main. I'm a firm believer that War Mode is one of the coolest features
Posting
ever
that.
added to the game. On stream, we've been testing cross-faction communities and
Raid,
grouping while
right?
we test Season 4 Mythic Plus dungeons. Side note, but Grimrail Depot is an absolute banger of a Mythic Plus dungeon. People are saying it's going to be a nightmare, and in some ways it definitely is, but also, it's really short, it's very intense, there's no dicking around with skips
you
or
old
alternative
man.
routes, one straight line, big pulls, crazy deeps. This is going to be one of the favorites of
yeah,
the
no, I
season,
know it
mark
don't
my
matter.
words. And it's just felt awesome to be pulling in players from both factions to game with. Like I said earlier, I don't think normal people ever took the faction divide genuinely
Bet you
seriously.
eat mayonnaise
in
on
terms of, like,
sandwiches on white
identity
bread? Yeah, mayonnaise is pretty good.
and how you treat other people, but I think it did undoubtedly give toxic players more excuse
Yeah,
to
Riku,
be
guys, get
toxic
back in
to
here.
others. And I think in lots of ways, this change will help soothe lots of those issues too. It genuinely feels like a new dawn and way of playing. I admit I am genuinely excited for Season 4 to hit when we get to see all of this working in a competitive environment, as well as communities maybe leveling together cross-faction in Dragonflight, and the next obvious step of making cross-faction guilds a thing. They've got to be a thing, right? Make them a thing.
Cross-faction
Welcome, my
guilds will
Horde
be a
and
thing.
Alliance brethren, to the first day of the rest of your lives. Stop fighting. Thanks for joining us today. If you like this episode, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to make
Good
all
stuff.
of our work happen. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is George Fisher. No, God, no. My name is Taliesin from me and Evertel, and the Myron and Penny too. Until next time, cheerio.
Fantastic. Good stuff.